Our hands are arguably our most useful tools. The food we cook, the technology we use, and the vehicles we drive all depend on our ability to grasp and manipulate the world around us. Most other primates have hands with opposable thumbs that can grab things like branches and sticks, but we can grip with precision. It's primarily our fine motor skills that separate our hands from those of our primate relatives. That being said, our gross motor skills also differ from those of monkeys and apes. Whereas their arboreal environments call for things like hanging and swinging, our terrestrial environments call for carrying. An often overlooked aspect of human evolution is our ability to carry. Like walking, it is such a subconscious thing we do in our everyday lives that we often take it for granted. Carrying our phones and groceries takes such a little brain power, but is so valuable. We've even built tools to help us carry things independently of our freed hands. Let's take a look at the role that carrying played in human evolution and how this unique power can be used today to improve our health and fitness. The origins of carrying are far more ancient than you may have known. The first primates came into existence around 55 million years ago, and it's believed that, by this point, infants were being carried by their parents. Like modern-day primates, these infants would likely cling onto their mother's back or stomach as they roamed the forest. Presumably, both mother and child developed adaptations to improve the energetic efficiency of carrying and being carried. One could make the argument, then, that the origin of resistance training is marked by this 55 million year old tradition. Fast forward to today, and we see that the trait for carrying infants has been conserved in all primate lineages. However, beginning around 4 million years ago, there is an evolutionary shift in human infants, which had downstream effects on carrying. Human infants are vastly more altricial. This means that human mothers give birth to less mature babies who take longer to become independent. Just compare a baby deer walking immediately out of the womb to a human baby who can't walk for the first 15 months of their life. A human's child is relatively meek compared to that of a chimpanzee, requiring more attention and care from their parents. Why humans, though? Because our brains need more time to mature. Giving birth to live young, a mother would be hard-pressed to push out an infant with the skull that's big enough to support an adult-sized human brain. Humans solved this problem by giving birth to less mature babies, whose brains were smaller and less developed, leaving a greater percentage of that maturation period outside of the womb, postnatally. The result is an infant who requires being carried for a longer period of time, and a mother or father who has the strength and endurance to do so. Walking on 2 feet also affected our carrying abilities. One study comparing the upright posture of the Homo lineage to the more bent posture of our predecessors, like the Australopithecines, suggests that ours is more energetically efficient for carrying. This shift to bipedalism freed our hands, allowing us to carry infants in various new ways. One obvious difference between humans and other primates is that we can hold infants directly in our arms without obstructing our locomotion too much. Another is that we use those hands to construct tools for carrying our infants. Ethnographic studies of traditional cultures show that people create satchels to carry infants on their fronts, sides, and backs. With the help of our hands and a hint of inventiveness, we became the primate version of a kangaroo. With the advent of bipedalism, our hands were freed from locomotion, and we could use them to carry children. With the advent of technology, our hands were further freed from carrying children, allowing us to do so while simultaneously hunting and gathering. For most of our history, we lacked permanent shelter. Before developing the practices necessary for settling in one geographic area, such as plant and animal domestication, early humans migrated from location to location. Groups of hunter-gatherers roamed the natural landscape in search of food and water. Because of these nomadic lifestyles, we couldn't accumulate large quantities of items. We had no place to store them. We were limited only to what we could carry on our person. Importantly, what we chose to carry were only the essentials. Any extra non-essential weight would have been unnecessarily energy-consuming. This would have put people in evolutionarily disadvantageous positions. What we did carry, in addition to those aforementioned infants, were things like tools, food, resources, such as stone and firewood. For example, looking at the archaeological evidence of the Oldowan stone tool culture, which dates to roughly 2 million years ago, elucidates how people were carrying their raw materials for more than 10 kilometers. Some later stone tool technologies were carried up to 40 kilometers away from their source material. Nomadic hunter-gatherers would have had camps where they gathered for limited amounts of time. They would have spent the day hunting game and foraging for plant foods to then bring back to camp and cook over the fire. Much research has gone into the adaptations humans evolved in order to hunt that prey for long distances, but it is just as important to carry what you caught back to camp. One thing that's beautiful about the internet is that you no longer need to read an anthropologist's lengthy 300-page dissertation to see examples of this. There is a surprising amount of YouTube videos that document the lifestyles of people like the Hadza, including their hunting strategies. In this video, you can see multiple Hadza men returning to camp after a 2-hour hunt, carrying an antelope, some monkeys, and all their hunting equipment. Some of this is attached to their body using satchels and ropes, while they're simply holding some of the equipment in their hands. Carrying was clearly one of the staple forms of physical activity performed by humans throughout our evolution. It enhanced our survival. Despite having access to supermarkets, many people in the modern world still opt to hunt for the bulk of their meat. They'll go on long voyages in places like Alaska or Montana to track down an elk and put an arrow through one of its vitals. Modern hunters certainly have more advanced technology compared to what humans had in the past, such as high-powered compound bows and long-distance rifles, but they still have to lug their equipment through some very rugged terrain, and they still have to carry the carcass of their catch after a successful hunt. A study published in 2021 looked at the metabolic biomarkers of several individuals, 4 men and 3 women, who participated in an Alaska backcountry expeditionary hunt. The researchers measured things like their body weight, fat mass, muscle mass, and cholesterol before and after the hunt. They found improvements in all metrics. After the 8 to 12 day hunt, participants weighed less, had less body fat but maintained muscle mass, and had less bad cholesterol but maintained good cholesterol. A key component of the study was that these participants were carrying all of their provisions in a backpack consistently across the 8 to 12 days. Quote, "We have presented compelling evidence that promotes the efficacy of Alaska backcountry expeditionary hunting on improvements in biomarkers typically associated with an increased risk for metabolic disease in females and males." End quote. No wonder why militaries around the world institute a ruck march as part of their habitual exercise protocol. A ruck march, or rucking, is when troops carry a load similar in weight to that which they would carry in battle for long distances. To prepare for the hyper-competitive environments of war, soldiers need to be in great physical condition. Rucking is a supreme tool to achieve optimal fitness while practicing something practical. Another study, this time looking specifically at United States Army cadets, compared the physiological differences between a loaded and an unloaded 6-mile ruck march, i.e. with and without weight. The loaded ruck took longer to complete, resulted in higher average and max heart rates, and burned about 400 more calories than the unloaded ruck. Needless to say, it was more physically demanding to compete the 6-mile march while carrying an extra 40 pounds. In the modern era, exercise fads rapidly come in and out of existence. In one sense, this dilutes the pool of potential workouts one can implement. In another sense, this acts as a filter, allowing the legitimately effective forms of exercise to persist. We can even think of this in a Darwinian sense. Exercise consists of different variants, and those that are more effective are more likely to outcompete the others. Resistance training in the form of carrying weight is by no means a fad. It is millions of years old, originated as a physical activity for survival, and persists today as a reliable form of exercise. Michael Easter, best-selling author of The Comfort Crisis and Scarcity Brain, is a huge proponent of incorporating rucks into one's exercise regimen. As a health and performance journalist, Easter has done a deep dive into the evolutionary origins of carrying and concurs that it is A, a defining feature of Homo sapiens, and B, a favorable way to combat the sedentary lifestyles of today and improve one's overall fitness. Easter's research has led him to these general guidelines for people getting into rucking. Ruck often enough that your body can get better at rucking, at least once a week. Do not ruck so often that you don't have time to recover. Don't do 3 tough days in a row. Do not go too heavy too soon, and progress by increasing either load or distance, but not both at once. The beauty of rucking is in its simplicity. Some companies make backpacks and vests specialized for rucking, but at the beginning, all you need is a general backpack and something to put in it. Starting with a lighter weight, maybe 20 pounds, and slowly increasing that weight week after week will surely do the trick. Your initial weight, though, will depend on your personal body weight and fitness levels, of course. In all honesty, you don't even need a backpack. You can get even more primitive by picking something up with your hands, holding it, and just start walking. In modern exercise terminology, this is often called a farmer's carry or a farmer's walk, but it could equally be called a hunter-gatherer's walk. Often done with kettlebells, dumbbells, or larger specialized handles, anything of sufficient weight that you can grab with your hands will work. Both forms of carrying will work your body in important ways, improving your cardiovascular health, muscle strength and endurance, and core stability. Let's not take our free hands and carrying abilities for granted. It's part of what makes humans unique. Even Darwin himself understood the importance of our hands in defining our species. He said, "If it be an advantage to man to stand firmly on his feet and have his hands and arms free, of which from his preeminent success in the battle of life there can be no doubt, then I can see no reason why it should not have been advantageous to the progenitors of man to have become more and more erect and bipedal. They would thus have been better able to defend themselves with stones or clubs to attack their prey, or otherwise obtain food. The best built individuals would, in the long run, have succeeded best and have survived in larger numbers." By combining our adaptations to endurance, carrying, and making tools for carrying, could rucking be the most human form of exercise? If you like this video, make sure you click the like, make sure you leave a comment, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. Do you guys agree that rucking could be the most human form of exercise, being that it does incorporate our adaptations to long distance travel, our ability to carry with an upright posture, and even our cognitive abilities to create tools like backpacks to do that carrying? I'd love to hear what you guys think. Also, if you have experienced rucking, let me know. I'd love to hear your perspective on it, what you think, how it's affected your health. If you enjoy it maybe more than other forms of exercise, I'd love to know. Other than that, if you want to do further research, or you simply just enjoy reading as opposed to videos, make sure you go to the description below, subscribe to my newsletter, and there in the future you'll be receiving the article versions of these videos with, full citations, references to any study I'm discussing in the video, and from there you can pursue your own research. Also, do not forget to check out my last episode on sleep. Super essential. Sleep is arguably the most fundamental aspect of one's health, and you should choose to optimize it as best as you can. So with that, have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday.